But we're going to get going here. So if we jump into the next slide, all right, I'm excited to get into this portion because this is the part that we start hearing from some people doing amazing things in this industry. People who are having great success, may have had some learnings over the years that they can share, maybe help everyone shortcut a couple things, and looking forward to some good questions as well. So before we kind of get over into who's talking, just from a mechanics standpoint, please use the chat function in there. Reminder that when you open up chat, you can make it set so that it messages everyone. And that's what we need as we're asking questions here, as we're going into the panel. I have some questions that I'll ask, but definitely want to get questions from everybody as well. We got 3 topics that we'll kind of be touching on. Consignment, just general growth of your business and different things that you can do and focus on there. And then we'll try to get in a little bit into the topic of thinking about selling. And hopefully everyone's ready to ride a really good wave here that we've seen start this year and has been growing over time. But with any business, as a business owner and entrepreneur, that is something that is a good idea to keep in mind. So we'll also try to touch on that a little bit here. May not be something on everyone's mind just at this moment, but again, always something to think about. So without further ado, really excited to have our guests here. So on the next slide, you'll see some pictures of our attendees. You'll also see them on video here. So first of all, we have Todd from Adventure KT. Anyone who's at Summit last year, you got the chance to hear from Todd and some of the things that he's already successfully doing in his business and learnings there. He's a great member of the community. I know when I get a phone call or an email from Todd, he's going to make me think. A lot of the things that are built into the product, honestly, Todd is someone you could look at to thank. He's been a great partner and giving great feedback to Wheelbase for a long time. I'll come back to Todd in a second to enter a little bit more on his business and what he's doing right now. But then from across the pond, we have Lindsay and David from Kirky Campervans. Really cool business, really great growth story. They're doing some unique things. They're doing a lot of different things too. So I'll pass it over for them to talk as well about what it is that they're accomplishing. I think we're right, evening time over there. So again, appreciate you guys taking the time to join us at the later hour there. So let me throw it over to Todd though first. And Todd, if you want to talk a little bit about Adventure KT and your journey and your focuses.
All right, I think I unmuted properly. Hi, I'm Todd with Adventure KT, as Evan said. I started about 6 years ago with 2 vehicles that we purchased, and then I actually bought a distressed RV rental business, somebody who was pretty much going out and looking just to kind of sell whatever fragmented parts were left. That was in 2015. So we kind of went through a transition period for about a year. And that's when we learned a ton. And when I say learned a lot, just to get anybody an idea, my wife and I, when we started, we had never actually been in an RV. So we actually just bought 2 blank and said, after selling a previous business, we kind of looked and said, what do we want to do? And we thought this might be a cool idea. So we started off that way. With a few good vehicles and a lot of bad ones. And we just learned along the way and have grown since then. Now we're at about 31 vehicles, a combination of both owned but mostly consignment, and doing very well.
Thanks very much, Todd. And man, I feel like it's the Jetsons, right? We're all around the world here. We're seeing people. We're going to talk to people over there in the UK, where a lot of my family's from. David and Lindsay, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and Kirky Campervans?
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. So yes, we run Quirky Campers, which is the home of handmade campervans in the UK. So our core business is handcrafted campervan rental using a peer-to-peer model. But around that, we've kind of added on all these different elements of our business in response to our customer demand. So we now run an annual handmade campervan festival where you can come along and learn all the skills you need to build a campervan. We also run online workshops. We're just about to publish a conversion ebook, which we're very excited about. And then we've also got a campervan sales platform. and a directory of campervan converters where people can advertise their businesses doing the style of campervans that we specialize in.
The style of campavans we specialize in is primarily comes from people who buy a panel van and then cut windows in it and do the conversion themselves. And so a lot of the content that we're putting out is helping people along that journey to create the very best campervan that they possibly can. And also using the rental model as a way of encouraging and helping people finance it and really up their game. And what we've seen is we've been running 10 years now. And what we've seen just in the past few years is an absolute surge in interest in the whole van life world. And we've very much benefited from on the back of that.
In terms of how we started, we kind of fell into the peer-to-peer model because we did our own conversion, wanted to rent it out to fund it, couldn't find anyone else who would rent out the kind of camper van that we had. So we sort of set up a business primarily just to do that, and imagined we'd do a few more of our own vans over the years. But actually, we didn't want to get into having a yard and doing the actual vehicle management full time. We realized we were more excited about the online platform and the marketing and the kind of the ways that we could support our audience. So that just kind of seemed to be a sensible way to do it. And so the vast majority of our owners do it primarily just so they can have a camper van that they use themselves and then fund it by renting out when they're not using it.
That's phenomenal. It makes me initially think of a question now. When you're selling a van to someone or someone comes in and they're going to start that process, go through the build, what are some of the common things that they ask you before they decide to actually rent it out later on?
Specifically related to the rental side of it, or just the conversion?
The rental side, so that maybe they're bought into conversion, but before they decide to go down that rental path.
They want to know what the specification is, and one of the problems we've got in the UK is there isn't really a specification for a legal regulatory framework for exactly what the conversion should and shouldn't contain. There are certain elements, and so we go through weight and gas are the main issues, and we help people through that process.
Also, I mean, this is going to be something that they're going to absolutely pour their hearts into. So they've got some big questions about what happens if somebody damages it, and and what happens if somebody damages our sort of handcrafted interior. And that's a really good question, and it's great if somebody's thinking about that in advance, because actually there are a lot of things you can do to just make it really robust and easily fixable. So we just always say, well, look, we had our previous van for 13 years. There's no way we would have kept her in such good nick if we hadn't been bringing in money so that we could constantly be upgrading her. And so that's kind of our main argument to people.
Now, I want to ask Todd a similar question on the consignment side, but have you ever, Lindsay and David, had someone where you talked to them and you answered those questions at the end, you said, you just shouldn't rent it out. Like, you just don't have maybe the right personality, or like, you just should not do that.
We're getting a bit more cutthroat now, and being a little bit more frank with people. But the problem we have is that not everybody knows that before they go into it, whether they're going to adapt to it or not. And I take great joy in the process of showing somebody around something that I've created, watching them go off. They're quite nervous about the process, and then when they return, the joy that they've experienced is a great thing to share. And some people will get something from that, some owners, and others don't. And for them, it's just a nerve-wracking experience. And then I say, if it's not something you enjoy doing, then don't do it. Leave it for others.
I think people learn very quickly once they've started, for sure, if they can trust. I got to come over to Todd on the consignment side. Same thing. Your learnings over the year. Do you ever tell a person like, no, I'm not going to take your vehicle on consignment?
All the time. It's not for everybody. And it's kind of, we've gotten a lot better, or I've gotten a lot better vetting the right owner who will fit with what we want to do, and how we handle the vehicles. Ultimately, I tell them, if we do our job right, we're going to devalue your vehicle because we're going to put some miles on it. While the revenue will compensate for it, you just have to be prepared for that. And also just, we have a kind of a question list. We go through them just to kind of give a gut check on where they were at, financially, how they're set up with the vehicle. That usually is the biggest telltale sign. Like, if they are really banking on this as a nest egg, they're not the right person to go into the market. they've got to have, some sort of liquidity to be able to buy and take a risk if it's not something they're using on their own.
Todd, do you have anyone who has brought in multiple vehicles in consignment to you, or like started with one and grew it over time?
We do. We have quite a few owners like that. We have one owner who started with one and now has 4 in the fleet. I have 3 owners who have 2. And then we've have quite a few owners who have purchased one, gone through a 2-year period, have been able to pay down their note, stay above the value curve on the vehicle. And, we'll eventually make the call and say, hey, I think it's time to retire this vehicle. They'll trade it in or most likely sell it on the open market, use that equity that they were able to build in it and buy something else. So we've had quite a few owners turn vehicles with us. And that's the biggest, probably the number one success gauge for anybody in the consignment business is if you have a successful model where owners can keep a vehicle in your fleet for 2 years, sell it, make money when they sell it because they've been able to pay it down and buy you another one, that tells you you're doing, whatever you're doing, your numbers and everything are right.
That's fantastic. Contracts, Todd, got to ask you a little bit about that. How much time have you spent making sure your contract is tight, and any specific learnings on those contracts with your consignment owners?
We've gone through two main versions of our contract. An initial one when I just started that I kind of hand wrote myself, and another one that I kind of took some better parts from what was out there in the world, and then had some legal people look over it. But it's not, I tend to tell my owners it's not so much a contract, but an operating agreement. This is how we're going to work on a back and forth on a daily, monthly reporting basis. And I use it as really a calming tool when somebody is starting off with a fleet. And it's the first level of confidence that I'm not the only one in control, that they have some eyes on their vehicle as well.
Very, very good. Lindsay, David, with your guys' platform, and I'm sure you've just had at least 65 hits to your website. So if you see that spike on the site, it probably doesn't show up because you guys are doing such big business anyways. But maybe you can talk a little bit about how many vehicles do you currently have that people are renting out through your platform? And then sort of an interesting one I know comes up through the Outdoorsy platform as well. Every once in a while, someone actually wants to use their own RV for their own vacation. How do you guys handle it if there's like scheduling issues for that reason or something else? How do you guys manage that?
Yeah, interesting question. So for their own use, we don't have any limitations on owners using the vehicles themselves. They can use it as much as they want. However, we have a contract with them, which is very similar to Todd's. We borrowed from what was out in the world from similar businesses initially, and then got lawyers to look at it, and have made lots and lots of changes over the years in response to things that have happened. But we make it very, very clear that, first of all, the vehicle only goes live and is made available by the vehicle owner. So they push the button on that. So when it goes live, and we make really clear that any bookings must be honoured. And we're just really strict about that. And there have been a handful of occasions over the years where we've gone back to a paying customer and reverted it, and they've been like really good reasons, but in very exceptional circumstances. We just have to make it really clear.
There's so much in the relationship building with the owners, and one of the things that I think that they really get, because we accentuate it, is when they do something like that, it doesn't just affect them, it affects all the owners across the platform, because it reflects negatively on our brand, and they know that they're all benefiting from the fact that we have a really strong brand. People trust us, people expect a high level of service from us, and so that's part of their job is to be part of that family and reinforce that. In terms of the number of vehicles we've got, I think we're currently on 119. It fluctuates a bit, and at this time of year is when we tend to see people selling them for various reasons. It might be because they want to sell it for a profit and do another one. It might be, sometimes we have people decide to move on because actually we've been too successful, and because in our model people are handling all their own handovers, they suddenly realize that actually this is just making them way too busy. So we kind of, yeah, we have various reasons. Sometimes we're a victim of our own success, so numbers tend to dip and then they start coming up again from January onwards.
We've got some great questions in chat here, so I'm going to try to ask some of them. Sting, first of all, with Lindsay and David, your thoughts on advantages and disadvantages when you have a bit of variety in the fleet. This question's from Adam. Sort of having a combination of camper vans, teardrop trailers, coaches, different things. Your thoughts on that first, Lindsay and David.
We don't really have that much variety. So we've got a very specific niche that we carved out for ourselves quite, right from the get-go, that didn't really exist elsewhere, with this self-build look. So there's a lot of solid timber. We've got some with solid fuel, wood burning stoves in them, and with some really unusual features. That each one is individual, but broadly speaking, they've got 2 to 6 belted seats. They're suited, they're just your standard camper van side of things. We have tried teardrops, and we've got one static on there, or a couple of delivery onlys. But that is, I would say, find what you're good at and go with that, because all of the variety that you get requires a lot of additional learning and additional effort, and things just become much more complex. So we've actually pared it down over the years, and are being much more specific these days.
Well, having said that, every single vehicle is unique. So
yeah.
it's both somehow. We've got our niche and they're all totally unique.
Which is very interesting. Yeah, and again, when you see the platform, it is like you have over 100 different things, but they are in a very specific one. And I think that makes sense. I imagine also from a marketing perspective, promotion perspective, you get to focus on what you would communicate out.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting for, every now and again, we've kind of asked ourselves the question, because we turn away so many that don't fit our criteria of being handcrafted and really beautiful and very functional. So obviously we're limiting our own growth, and occasionally we've questioned that. But what we've ended up doing is as we've kind of described, built this whole world around the people who are into this kind of camper van, and we're able to serve them in a whole variety of ways. So that's where we've taken our business, and it allows us to be real experts in this type of camper van, whether it's building it, renting it out, selling it.
One of the big reasons for selling at the moment is the fact that the market has gone absolutely through the roof. 65 hits on our website won't register, and the reason for that is we're getting thousands and thousands of hits every day on our sell your camper van page. People desperately looking to buy one of the kinds of camper vans that we sell. We unfortunately don't get anywhere near enough camper vans being listed for sale, but yeah, our ex-rental ones do go up there, and they get picked up like that.
That's very cool. That's very exciting. I imagine some of those ones that get bought end up back in the fleets as well.
Yeah, not as many as I'd like. I know people are selfish and I want to keep them for themselves.
Todd, coming over to you, a same question there around advantages and disadvantages of variety in the fleet.
Well, I agree with David and Lindsay. You have to stand for something. Ultimately, that's something that my wife and I worked on at the beginning was, what does our brand stand for? If it was just a mix of just any RV we can get, it's not really a brand building process. So we took a stand and really said, we're going to focus in on higher end, that 23 to 25 foot RV. So while we may have, 30 plus RVs right now, over half of them are literally 25 feet. And we focus in, and then we give some variety, and yes, they're all different, but people know that if they want in that category, we pretty much have that market in our area locked in. And we feel that's what people really were looking for out there, especially the younger, newer client to RV rental. They weren't looking for that big class A. So we wanted to stand for something that we felt the market needed. When we first came into it, Consignment was really mostly older, big class A's, some class C's. And we just really didn't feel that that's where things were heading.
Todd, staying with you, a couple more questions just around sort of consignment and operations in the business. What do you do around storage for the ones you have? And then the other part of it is just sort of any really specific questions that you ask. Oh no, sorry. How often do you communicate with your consigners? And how do you keep them happy?
Everything stays on our lot. So we don't let anybody. We've had owners who wanted to keep their RV here or there, and it's just not what we do. We definitely want to control the cycle of operations. It kind of guarantees that when a renter picks it up, we know exactly how it's going to be, the walkthrough, the cleanliness, and all the operation side of it. It gives us that control. So we store everything here. It's, real estate is tough. That's, part of our business equation, but we've making that stand that we're going to keep it all at this place. And what was the second part?
How often do you interact or communicate with your consigned owners to keep them happy and not blowing up your cell phone?
Definitely monthly, a quick little, a group email that goes out about the same time. And we do pay everybody on a monthly basis. So I kind of just give, especially we updated a little bit more during coronavirus because everybody was getting nervous in March and April. But for the most part, we do a monthly simple email, not much, paragraph, half a paragraph, just kind of the state where we think the next few months will be in. It gives them an idea of possibly where their cash flow might be in case they have questions, because owners do ask that, how much money is coming in next month, or I see on the calendar it's booked all this time. It kind of just puts all that in order, so we're not taking, I'm not taking 30 phone calls a month from people.
And I want to come over to David and Lindsay for the same question, but real quick, Todd, what, if you don't mind sharing, what percentage do you keep on consignment, and how do you build in, for the people who are thinking about consignment, how do you build in things like repairs and all of it? How does the money get broken down?
Yeah, and not a problem. And we're a straight 50-50 split on all, let's say, at what we call asset revenue, which is the nightly rental rate, mileage, and generators. We don't split anything else that we do on there. And the maintenance part, anything that has to do with their asset. So tires, every 6,000 mile, oil changes or anything, maybe your refrigerator breaks or anything like that, comes out of their cut. I've never had to have anybody write a check back to us. Revenue always solves the problem. It just gets deducted out. We take care of all wear and tear maintenance. So we have a company that comes in at least twice a year, professionally does the entire inside of every vehicle, from upholstery to floors to nicks and scrapes and whatever may happen on the inside. That's our nickel. Besides just the general washing and cleaning it on a regular basis, and of course we do all the marketing, sales, and promotion.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. David and Lindsay, your model's different, right? So everyone keeps their own vehicle, they do the handoffs, maybe a little bit more detail on that, and then how that economics works.
Yeah, so we have the added challenge of having to teach all of these newbies who most of them come on just as the season is hitting peak. Which was incredibly challenging this year because we had lockdown in the UK for the whole of the pre-season period, and then it opened up on the 4th of July here, and we had 50 vehicles going out on day one and 50 vehicles going out on day two, pretty much, with half of those nearly being new owners, and that was really, really intense. But the team we've got here did an amazing job of managing that. But yeah, this comes with significant issues in teaching people. And as you say, Todd's experience with some people not being suited for this, we don't have the benefit of us being the people who are dealing with the customers. Now, we try and do as much of that as we can in advance of the pickup to make sure that the customer is informed and prepped. But ultimately, when it comes to pickup, we've got to hand over to the vehicle owner to do that themselves. And yeah, there's a lot of problems with that. In terms of the economics, we take a 21, just over 21% cut of the amount that the customer pays on the booking value. and then the owner gets 100% of any add-ons, and they can choose the rates, and the same for mileage on those things. That's pre-tax and card fees for us.
Trying to read through a couple of questions here. Let me see. This one feels like it's a planted question, but it's not. So from Camilla, Todd, over to you there first. Why did you choose Wheelbase? Did you look at any other software, especially with a larger fleet? Yeah.
I chose Wheelbase because Horst and Spencer came to our facility and said we had to. Before Wheelbase, we use kind of a generic model called Web Reserve. It was a super easy reservation software that we could iframe in. They had some customization, but it wasn't really anything special. We did look at some of the other bigger dealer models, but just the cost at that point in our juncture, I just didn't want to spend that kind of money on a regular basis, on a monthly basis for a software subscription. I'd rather put the money into developing our brand and our website and that presence on there. And Wheelbase, I fit in a couple of ways. One is we like the software, we like the people. We felt you were heading in the right direction, and we did not want to leave the peer-to-peer network aside as kind of like a side gig. We love the fact that it was going to kind of force our integration into what we obviously knew was going to be a huge part of the industry and the rental process in the future. So it kind of helped us tie it in. So that was our thought process in choosing it. And it's been great.
Can I ask a question?
I'm not sure who that's coming from, but go ahead and shoot. And then we'll go back to chat only just so we can keep moving forward.
All right. The question I wanted to ask with Wheelbase, I asked Horst this before. The only thing I kind of dislike about it, I love everything else about it. I'd love that if we could figure out how to get either RV shares calendar integrated or, you know, whatever. I figured a way around that myself, but it's just a pain in the butt. The other thing is also when I send out a quote to somebody or something like that, it always has Outdoorsy's name on the top. Is there a way to get around that so that you don't end up, you know, like with a customer not coming from you, but coming from Outdoorsy?
Yeah, I'm going to touch on that one real quick, and then Horace is going to do a little bit of a session later on the product, which I think will help there. I would say on email overall, there are a few things you can do, but there's also some things that we need to change in the product. So definitely some things that we need to make better. It's very confusing when someone calls into the Outdoorsy call center too, in those one-off cases. So we want to make sure that they're coming to you, they see it coming from you, that those emails are as clean as possible going out. So absolutely some things we need to do there. But I'll let Horace talk about that a little bit more when we're talking specifically on the product parts. That's a great question there. Just sort of circling back over to Lindsay and David, and sorry, I forgot on the question I want, so I'm going to do a really quick read here.
I can remember. So it was why we chose Wheelbase, and it's quite an interesting story. So as soon as we went for the consignment model, started going with the consignment model and taking on other people's vehicles that belong to us, we had to build our own software, and there wasn't anything really like Wheelbase out there at the time. This is 2010 we started, so 11 and 12. You know, Twitter was quite new at the time. So I spent about six years developing that, and then we got to a point where the development that was needed was just way outside what our budget allowed for, and in order to sort of bring it on to, you know, to work nicely on smartphones and to make the booking process as simple as possible for customers, reporting, all sorts of things were missing from it, as well as an email system at all. So it was just we could email out, but the replies didn't get linked back to the booking in any way, and the development cost of developing something like that was just huge and not something we could do. So I then went and had a really good look at what was available, and it was narrowed it down to 5 different options. And just at that point, Mark got in touch and said, would you be interested in this product? Which it was just absolutely spot on timing. I had a really good look at it and spoke to Michael and Spencer, who subsequently came to visit. There were some issues with it because it's the consignment model that you have built in didn't at the time allow for consignees to log onto the system and interact with it. And that was quite a drastic change. But what was amazing about Wheelbase was its similarity in structural terms to what we already had, and it was spookily similar, and it was really nice to see because the way that you've built Wheelbase is in response to the community that you've got, and it made me realize that we were really on the right track in terms of what we had developed, but it just wasn't serving our needs anymore, and Wheelbase was head and shoulders above the other providers out there in terms of how close it was to what we needed to do, and so many of the products out there weren't specific to campervans or to RVs, and that was a major issue.
Like the salesperson in me thinks that we should just end the summit right now. We're not going to do that. We still got lots of time in this session and the other ones, but no, I really appreciate that. There's still way more for us to build on, make better. I think that question was a great example of one that came out from the audience there. Like there's still lots to do, but glad to hear that it's helping you guys be successful. And I think the key is
it's been really good actually working with you guys to and how that you really listen, and that's been a huge help. So when Michael was still with you, I spoke to him very regularly and had very close contact with him, and he was really genuinely interested in what changes could be made, and it was great seeing changes coming along, being made for us, which was just fantastic.
That is awesome here. I really appreciate that question. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to answer that. Another question in here, I think, Todd, for you specifically, was around pictures. So from Michael Marks, who does your 360 videos and pictures?
It's both a combination of a professional photographer at one time if we have enough new vehicles, or we made a change to our vehicle item pages one time. Our web developer tweaked it a little bit. We had someone come in and just do it. It's a simple process. We did not use like Matterport or any of the fancy ones. It's pretty much a swivel camera. He holds it, it swivels around. We cut it to a certain, like maybe 15, 20 seconds and throw it up on YouTube and then process the link to it. It's pretty easy. Now we do it here on our own with an iPhone and a monopod with a simple swivel on it.
That's awesome. Yeah, you guys have some great content on there, so that is phenomenal. It's amazing what you can do nowadays with an iPhone.
Yeah.
Just sort of staying on the marketing side here, now that we've transitioned, lots of good consignment questions. We'll make sure that we try to capture all of them. We will capture them all and try to get out some good FAQs to everybody. But just sort of on how do you drive business? How do you get renters to your site? So David and Lindsay, if I can swing over to you guys first, what's your marketing mix looks like? What's the magic sauce?
Yeah, do everything. So yeah, I mean, we are at a size now where we do kind of use all the main marketing channels, I guess. So we've got a pretty strong social media presence these days. Primarily we use, I'm thinking about the main sources of traffic is probably Instagram, Facebook, and then actually Pinterest. I mean, the number of hits we get on our website from Pinterest for the tiny amount of work that goes into it is pretty incredible. We're also on Twitter and YouTube. Actually, the vast majority of our bookings come through Google, so we spend a lot of time on our search engine optimization. But I guess all that other stuff just kind of, it's important for social proof. It brings in different kinds of collaborations, and also it brings a lot of people to our mailing list. So we're really working on our mailing list now, kind of continuing to nurture that. I think we're up to about 45,000 people on there, which and we still only send out one email a month if we're lucky. I mean, we definitely could do more on it. And then we do a lot of work with the press. So Again, I think because what we do is so unique and eye-catching, we get approached a lot by national media, TV, and that kind of thing. So that obviously helps as much as anything, actually, just on the search engine optimization side to really increase our authority. Those are the main things, but I guess we're always innovating. I mean, we created the festival in order to just kind of get our name out there. So, you know, we're always trying different things. Oh, yeah. And obviously the t-shirts and jumpers are the primary way we promote our business.
Well, we definitely believe in lots of t-shirts too.
Yeah.
Given a lot of those, I think that's a good move. I saw a stat recently, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was this really ridiculous stat about if you have a good shirt, and I love your guys' logo, that people will keep it on average for 2 years, maybe longer. They'll wear it like X amount of times. The impressions are ridiculous. So like for a $20 shirt, as long as it's a nice logo and people, you know, nice and soft, people are going to wear it. It really is a powerful item. You did say something that not everyone might be familiar with. You said social proof. Can you share a little bit? What is social proof?
I mean, do you know, I don't have any kind of marketing qualifications, so this is all just my own understanding on the job. But basically, that people can go to your social media and find out that you are legit. And so people go onto our Instagram and they see that we've got 110,000 followers, and they're like, "Wow, this is a real business." And then, you know, and also focusing on getting plenty of reviews. So on Facebook, we've got a lot of not just, and I'm sure that many of you who run similar businesses have the same experience, that people don't just say, "Oh, that was nice," but they share pictures of where they've been and the experiences they've had, and they're really detailed in terms of how they used it, and what the kitchen was like, and lighting the wood burner, and, you know, some real kind of evocative stories. So yeah, it's just a chance for people to kind of check you out and go, "Oh, right, yeah, other people think these guys are good, so I can probably trust them."
That's perfect. Thank you very much for sharing that. Todd, what does your marketing mix look like to drive renters? And then if you could also talk about how you drive new owners.
Okay. I'm not the marketing person. That's the other half, the Katie half of the biz. But we obviously handle our social media. For us, that's besides the normal channels. We also have we write articles for our own blog that's on our website. We do hopefully at least once a month, a newsletter. And it's really informative. We try to be to the point, provide good articles, and we do have some outreach to some independent writers who help us with that. Reviews are huge for us, especially during the pandemic. That's what people are looking to. They want to make sure, and our social proof is in our reviews, both on the peer-to-peer sites as well as the standard ones out there, Yelp, Google, etc. So we put some emphasis onto that, and then we also use. We don't profess to be the pros at this, so we also use outside services quite a bit. We do have on retainer a web and creative firm, which helps us with our branding. They're in Salt Lake. We have an SEO firm also on retainer that's in Fort Collins, Colorado. And then we have an individual on retainer who does all of our kind of keywords, AdWords, and Google, whatever we do in the Google sphere for internet search. There's a different person who handles that. So we've kind of paid out to it, knowing, you know, what our limitations are. And then we handle really just in-house brand work. Okay. And I'm getting new vehicles. At the beginning, we did things like Craigslist ads and other things to attract people. Now we're almost in the process, and I don't want to boast, but we're turning down stuff right now. We're really selective. We don't have a problem getting new vehicles in. People are coming to us. There's a tremendous amount of people who've gone out there. We know by the RV shortage that people are buying RVs. They've already bought up all the inventory. They're now going out there and trying to store them and finding out, oops, that's $300 in San Diego. So they're looking to other avenues on there. Quite a few of our rigs are rigs that started out on the peer-to-peer network. And then the owner realized, I don't have time for this. I've got a full-time job. I can't do it. There's got to be like an Airbnb, a management company who could take care of this for us. So those are avenues that we use. And one of our most successful avenues is our renters. We're pretty proactive to the right renter who really loves their trip, and they see that this may not be a company-owned vehicle, and they say, wow, this is interesting. So how does this really work? This year alone, we've had, I think, 4 vehicles come from renters who rented with us, had a great time, and then immediately went out and bought an RV, brand new on the lot, and drove it over to us. And then those are just regular users. So those are the ways we go out and get new consignment.
I think a lot of it, like you're in such a great place now, but so much of it, I think, is the reputation you built with owners and people, and I imagine word of mouth as well to get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other questions in here as we try to go through. One was around cancellations. So David and Lindsay, if someone cancels on your site, like a renter cancels last second, how does that work economic wise with the owner?
Yeah, that's right. So we've had to change our cancellation policy, and so the contract that I mentioned earlier on that we have with the owner, we effectively just had to tell it to let out the window when COVID hit and just say, look, this isn't the right thing to do right now, and you guys are just going to have to.
Sorry, Dave, we're having just a little trouble hearing you there.
Okay, is that any better? Okay, yeah. So we when the lockdown hit and we were suddenly faced with a massive amount of, so we cancelled something in the order of £350,000 worth of bookings in March, April, May, and June, and we had to just tell our owners that the agreement we had with them had changed, and there wasn't really and people were very understanding of that. But what we did was offer credit notes, and the hope is that the vast majority of that will come back at some point. And the credit note that we've issued, if that we've given them, put an expiry date on that, and if that expires and the owner is still with us, then we will give them their portion of the expired credit note.
Yeah, definitely an interesting, hopefully once in a lifetime event that we went through. And generally, I think people were understanding. Todd, did you have a similar experience at that sort of mass cancellation part earlier in the year? Did you experience that? And how about normally when something cancels, do your owners still get anything?
No, because if people do cancel, it's either we're going to give them a full refund or a portion refund, or they're going to get a credit in the system. So really love the way Wheelbase added that credit system. It made the process a lot easier in there. But when the pandemic hit, yeah, we were hit with a ton of, virtually everything got wiped out. There were no reservations going forward, anything in June, May, and the previous months all got canceled. With some people, we did give refunds back, just really depending on the timing of the reservation and when they booked it. And others, we just kept the full credit, gave them an expiration date, and we're still holding some of those credits to date. But and when those credits get used, the consignment owner will get paid at that time, on whatever vehicle that the new reservation goes out on. And then we adjusted our timing on how we take money from customers to make it easier for people to feel comfortable booking a new reservation. So we moved we take a 20% or $500 payment up front, and then we moved the balance to just 7 days prior. So that gave people a pretty good comfort level on that they're not going to get charged going forward, and then they have to hold it. And then we did some COVID specific full cancellation, and people have used that. We've had clients who got tested positive. They cancel a trip, they get a full refund. Obviously we do ask that they send us that notice. So we kind of modified our terms in the short basis during this pandemic to make people more comfortable to continue to book in the future.
Todd, I got a question for you, a little bit of a gear shift here. You mentioned earlier that you bought a business, right? The Adventure KT, you bought a business. And I know you're a very young man, so this is far away, but maybe one day you sell it, what you've now built up, and it's at a much higher value. How did you value the business when you're buying it? How did you figure out what you were going to offer, and how would you value your business trying to figure out modeling it now?
Well, the one we purchased was a distressed business. So you could throw out all the rules on a distressed business. It's in that case, they were going under, but they had about 60, I think it was 60, 61 future contracts, meaning reservations that were booked where they had taken a deposit. So it was our way to kind of look at it and say, hey, we could grab this for a steal. And instantly we have 60 reservations to start our process, and enabled us to really make a cash flow plan and help us get this, small business up and running as something real. If someone's consignment business can be tough to sell. What are you selling? That's the biggest trick to it. So if somebody was going to sell, the first thing I would tell them is prep your business for sale. Prep it for transparency. Prep it so that someone could see that there is a consistency in your vehicle models, that you just don't have RVs coming in and out on whoever. Preparation, consistency, transparency, so that when someone does their due diligence, that they could see everything that you may put out in your sell sheet. And you have to prep for that. I mean, everybody's in a small business. We're going to run it to our tax advantages or other personal basis. But if you really want to sell it, you got to prep it from the seller's point of view, not from your point of view that you've run it every year. You have to kind of change your thought process and develop your fleet, your transparency from the seller's point of view, to give them a level of confidence, because they got to shell out. Hopefully they'll shell out a lot of money to you. They're only going to do that if those things are in place. And you have to have a brand. If you're just a management model, you're not going to trade for a high multiple. But if you're a brand, you're going to trade at a much higher basis, because people feel that there's something real and tangible there. And you have to have some asset base besides just your brand, maybe a few vehicles. I mean, those are, off the top of my head, there you go.
There's a lot of great stuff there. Having been around a few, medium, small businesses, sales over the years, the advice Todd gave you there, like planning in advance, prepping it, transparency, those things are so critical. Another asset, and I see it in some of the questions here, is land, right? Space. While you're, if that's a decision you make and you end up owning property that you're keeping your vehicles on, that can sometimes be a really great added value. Or sometimes you sell the business and then they keep renting your property, so you continue to make money off the business even after the fact. So there's a variety of different paths you can go down. Good advice I've had from people in the past, and I've seen people take, is even if you're not thinking about selling it now, maybe talk to someone or find someone to mentor you who has sold a business. There's business sale brokers out there, and just have a conversation years before you go to do it. Because if you all of a sudden want to sell your business and you need to get it done quick, it's too late. You're not going to get a good multiple. You're not going to be prepared like Todd talked about there. You want to have that conversation and have those learnings and start building toward it long before you want to sell it.
At least 1 year.
At least minimum. Awesome. And just kind of reading through the questions here as well. Reviews, driving reviews. Oh, this is one of those big things. Lindsay would love to come over to you for this one. David, I have a feeling it's Lindsay who is the driver here. How do you get as many good reviews as possible in all those variety of places that people can leave reviews?
So the absolute key to reviews is prepping the customer and asking them for it in person at the handback, at that moment when they're bringing the vehicle back to you, assuming they've had a good experience, which should be the majority of your customers, is literally asking them, can I ask you to do me a favor? In a couple of days' time, I'm going to send you an email. If you could help us to just drop us a review on whatever your favorite site is. And that personal contact makes all the difference. So in our case, I'm training all of our owners to do that. And that's something that we regularly touch on with them about that process and teaching them to do it. And it's particularly for British people, it's very counterintuitive to the way that we normally work, and so people find it really challenging to do. It feels very uncomfortable, but it makes all the difference.
Todd, is there anything else you'd build on that from driving reviews perspective? Oh, so you're stuck on mute there.
There you go. We do a similar basis as Lindsay and David. We'll go ahead and ask for a review. We want people when they come back, we always greet them. We do a personal basis on how their trip was, where they went. We want to make them feel that we're vested in their experience. Once they see that, then that's the right time to go in and ask for a review. And about 3 days later, we send them a review email, and it has just simple links. They could choose whichever review platform that they want. And one of the links that is often used is it's a direct link to myself, that if they want to leave and say something directly to us, positive, negative, whatever, we give them that platform as well. And reviews are everything, especially now in the pandemic. It was our #1 priority when we started the business. Since we wanted to get on page 1 of Google and we didn't know how to do it. So our thing was, well, let's just have the best reviews on Yelp. And when you search on Yelp for RV rentals, Yelp is somewhere in there. And we were always listed first because of that. So it's very important.
Absolutely. There's a question on there. Do you use any review softwares? I think Customer Lobby is one out there. There are, just for anyone who's wondering about that, there are a number of
RV Value Mart, this is Joel. How can I help you?
Hey, Julian, I'm just going to put you on mute there. There's a number of softwares out there you can use. You can build them right into your process, your post process. One other learning that I've seen out there to share around reviews is even talking about it right at the start of the process. We want you to have such a great experience that you give us a 5-star review on every platform out there, right? Just sort of planting that seed really early in the process. And then you do what David talked about, remind them of it, that the email is going to come. You're not going to get 100% of the people, but if you can go from 5 to 10% or 10 to 20, those are really what you want to start doing it. And you really should measure those things to drive it the most. Is any part of the summit going to talk about using Wheelbase? Absolutely. Horace and team are going to do a little bit of that later on. And then we also have another session on that tomorrow. Absolutely. So we're going to get right into the software with them, and you'll be able to ask them direct questions as well. And then do either of you guys offer repeat customers a discount on future rentals? Maybe start with Todd.
We don't on there. But we do listen to people, and we're not stuck on our pricing, but we're fairly firm on what we know we have to get. But we have no dedicated plan for repeat customers or any, let's say, a customer sec to give them a discount. We do profile ourselves pretty much as full price. Do we give a lot of credits to people as a thank you? Sure. People here in the office, if they have a great experience with a client, they'll send them an email. And that's what makes that Wheelbase credit profile thing work real well. They'll send somebody $100 credit and then just thanking them and what a pleasure it was to work with them and help setting up their trip. So we do things like that on a personal basis.
I really like that because there's a cost to acquiring a new customer or to driving a repeat. So if you send them a $50 credit, but it normally costs you $100 to acquire a customer, that's a great ROI. Love that. David, Lindsay, anything you guys do around credits, repeat referrals, anything like that?
We don't actually know. We don't really do discounts full stop. It's something that we played around with a little bit, particularly when we had owners coming to us saying, oh, I've got an empty winter. Can you offer a discount? And we didn't actually find that it drew people in, and we felt it was undervaluing what we offered. So it's just list price now. We do really value our repeat customers, but it's more about offering them the highest level of service that we can, making sure they have a fantastic experience. And that's what seems to keep bringing them back. But I do like your idea, Todd, of just issuing people with credits unexpectedly. I think that's lovely. So maybe we'll start doing that.
That is a nice delayed move for sure. All right, we got 3 minutes left, so I'm going to go 1 minute for each of you guys on your top tips for dealing with difficult clients. There's a good one in there from Megan Cobb. Dealing with a difficult client. David, Lindsay, you want to go first?
Yeah, that's a
David's speciality.
that's a real tricky one. So you've got to take your ego and leave it behind, and you've got to take your frustration with the individual out of it and do everything you can to not blame them. The problem I've obviously got is that I'm between the owner and the customer, so we're negotiating a very complex relationship. But for my own customers, and when I'm teaching other owners, it's about finding a way to take your ego out of it and just empathy. That's what you need. You need to really understand what the client is what's going on for them.
Not always easy, but
No.
yeah, you got to go there. Todd, how do you deal with those most difficult of clients who want everything for free? You know what I'm talking about. They broke something and they want you to pay them for breaking it.
Yeah, well, we have, we have a slogan here that you could, because everybody has to deal with the clients, both the people out in the lot in the field and us here in the office. You could either choose to deal with it or you can hide from it, and you're never going to solve anything by hiding from it. We know. So it's better to be really proactive, even if the answer is a no. And then you just have to work that problem, but you have to be, you cannot like, oh, I'm going to call that person back later. No, you call them now, you take care of it now, you get on it. The sooner you get on it, the better and easier you're going to solve it. We also have a little game on who can get a 5-star review out of somebody who is just literally coming unglued at the seams out there. And that's our goal, is ultimately to take that problem, solve it fast, and turn it into a positive experience for both the client and for us, in a great review. And we want the client to be honest about the experience when they talk about it. So we're just very proactive on there. Clients can text. There's a variety of methods we use to communicate when they're out on the road or when they're back here with the vehicle and things didn't go right.
I think those ones. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You got to deal with it.
You got to deal with it head on. You lead with empathy, put the ego out. I think those are some
Yes.
really fantastic tips. Take a deep breath. I know for me, whenever I'm dealing with a tough conversation, whether it's, business, family, whatever it is, right? That deep breath, be in a good headspace. I like to walk around with the headphones on while I'm dealing with those, if it's over the phone sort of thing. Put yourself in the best place to be successful as well. Big thank you, Todd, David, Lindsay. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this, the preparation to do this. I think everyone hopefully got at least one, probably many takeaways, but huge thank you from the whole community. Cheers.